Who
No foolish heroics, if you please.
is Darkman? They destroyed everything he had, all that he loved, everything that he was. Now, crime has a new enemy, and justice has a brand new face.
I was afraid that you wouldn't want me anymore.
Of course I still want you.
The good news is that I know who's behind our little troubles of late. Finish it.
He has the power to look like any man,
These two are both sons of witches!
but he is unlike any man.
I gotta tell you something about me.
He's a cockroach. You think you're killing? And he pops up someplace else.
In the darkest hour,
Julie, who's the real monster here?
there's a light that shines on every human being. But one. From director Sam Raimi, Darkman.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1990 action, horror, thriller, I don't know what it is, Darkman, starring Liam Neeson, Frances McDormand, Larry Drake, a little bit of Bruce Campbell in there for flavor. For those who join us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. Go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the big thumbs up. Then go to our page on YouTube at KD9575 and hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. If you do that, you get all the latest updates, links. Anytime I post a interesting article or an interesting video, it'll be passed on to you. Okay? And don't forget to spread the word. The more, the merrier. Darkman. In this movie, Peyton Westlake is some kind of a scientist working to create a synthetic skin for burn victims that they can, I guess, slip it on, you know, if they're all messed up from burns, I guess, essentially. And he's going very well. There's just a problem. Right now, there's a 99-minute limit. After 99 minutes, the cells deteriorate and it just kind of melts. So that ain't too good. Okay, so he's still working on the process. He's currently with Julie. Julie, who works as an attorney for this big developer type named Strack. Earlier in the movie, excuse me. Earlier in the movie, we meet a gangster named Robert G. Durant, who's trying to muscle out the local gangs in his neighborhood. Has all these interesting characters, including a guy who's got a wooden leg, and you can just pop his leg off, essentially, and it's a machine gun hidden in his leg, so he's hopping around while somebody else shoots the machine gun, because I guess he can't pull his own leg off and then hop around while he's trying to shoot people. That just would be crazy. So he can't have that, okay? Sadly, Julie has uncovered a letter, or a memo of some sort, that directly implicates her boss, Strack, as being somebody who's bribed and paid off local city officials, zoning boards, things like that. She goes to her boss and is very concerned about it, and he's like, you know, I understand, you know, I'm trying to build this great new city in this crime-ridden area. You know, maybe it'd be best if we just lost that memo, because there's this gangster, Robert G. Durant. He's my competitor, and if he gets that memo, he could ruin me, and he's a dangerous guy, so who knows what he'll do to get that memo. So cut to Westlake working on the synthetic skin, and he realizes, because there's a power outage, that if the synthetic skin is not subjected to direct light, it can last longer than 99 minutes, perhaps indefinitely. So he's like, oh, okay, so we now have a step to go in that direction to solving this problem. Sadly, Durant and his gangsters arrive. They kill Westlake's assistant, shoot him, very sadly. They beat up Westlake. They put him on this machine where the electricity kind of messes up his hands. They dip his face in some kind of boiling liquid. I don't know if it's acid or oil or something. Mess him up. They find the memo, and they still try to kill Peyton Westlake. It's very upsetting. So they blow up the medical building, the warehouse, wherever it is he's working. Westlake, horribly burned, but lives. He is sent hurtling through the air, lands into a lake, pond, a stream. I don't know what it is. He's found as a John Doe with burns over 40% of his body. They, wrap him up like the mummy, and they talk about, normally he would spend the rest of his life in horrible agony from his burns, but we've got this new technique where we snip some nerves on his spinal column, and now he can't feel a thing. And she demonstrates this by poking. The doctor pokes with a needle. It just doesn't seem very professional in my opinion. Oh, but here's a side effect to not having any sense of feeling, is that now his emotions are crazy. He's going to have wild depressions and uncontrollable rages, which can result in him having superhuman strength. So she's all, now let's go look over here. Meanwhile, he hears this. Peyton Westlake is waking up going, what's going on? And now he's suffering from a rage, and he breaks free of his bonds because they had him all chained up. They weren't chains. They had him strapped down. And he jumps out the window. Again, looking like the mummy, staggering around because he's wrapped in bandages. He finds an old crazy trench coat, throws that on, and he goes back to his laboratory, and it's mostly destroyed. Strangely, no, most of his important materials, his high-tech equipment, not that damaged after all. The building's totally leveled, but no worries. I got all the stuff I need. He grabs all his stuff, finds an old, crazy, abandoned warehouse, and sets up shop there. He's going to work on his skin because he's too ashamed. He doesn't want to go to Julie because he proposed to Julie before the explosion. She was just like, I'll have to get back to you, big guy. So he's like, well, because I'm on such shaky footing with my girlfriend, perhaps, I'll wait. I'm not going to come over there looking like a crazy, crispy critter. So he's going to work on his synthetic skin before he approaches her. But he's also now like, but because I have wild mood swings and uncontrollable rages, I'm going to go get revenge on these gangsters for messing with me. Okay? So he goes and he grabs Ricky, who's like the #1 henchman of Robert G. Durant, kidnaps him, forces him to tell him everything about Durant's organization, and then promptly holds him up through a manhole cover on a busy street. That guy's dead meat. So now Westlake goes around with his camera taking pictures of all of Durant's henchmen. And he builds the masks of all the henchmen so he can kind of mess with them. It's so interesting. It suffers from what I call the face-off conundrum, where all you have to do is put on a mask that's made of skin, I guess. It looks just like the other person, and magically it molds perfectly to your face. Really, it's the skin that defines what your face looks like, not your bone structure or the muscles or anything else. Not to mention that, and if he'll grow the skin, put on the mask, and now he's 5 inches shorter and 50 pounds heavier. It doesn't matter. He also discovers he has a talent for doing impressions. He records Durant's crazy voice a couple times, and he's like Rich Little, and is able to perfectly mimic their voices. He had no idea he was so talented before this. Maybe that's a side effect of the operation. Who knows what's going on? So he's causing havoc in the organization. A lot of the guys wind up killing each other because they're like, hey, you robbed us. No, that wasn't me. Out the window you go. That sort of thing. Eventually, Peyton Westlake, he's like, you know what? I can't wait any longer. I've got 99 minutes. I'm going to put on the mask, which also includes hair, evidently. And he goes and confronts Julie at the graveyard. Probably not the best place to say, hey, I'm not really dead. You know what I'm saying? Might want to give her a heads up before you show up behind a tombstone. So she's like, okay, she's disturbed and shocked for a moment. She eventually comes around. And they start going on these dates, but he's like, hey, I wasn't really burned. I was just in a coma. No one really they didn't want me to know, or I didn't want anybody to tell anybody, so I was really just in a coma. I'm not horribly burned underneath the synthetic skin. So they proceed to have these 90-minute dates before he runs off screaming at the end. She's just like, okay. He's like, I gotta get back to therapy. I'll see you later. Evidently, while she thought Peyton Westlake was dead, she began having a little bit of a relationship, kind of hinted at with her boss. He comforted me, wink, wink, if you know what I'm saying. Now that Peyton's back, she breaks it off with Strack, but then she realizes that Strack and Durant actually work together, that Durant is a bad guy, but he works for an even bigger bad guy, Strack. So now they know that Peyton's alive. Strack sends Durant and his goons to go kill Westlake for real this time, and to kidnap Julie. I don't want to spoil everything else that happens in this movie. There's a lot of twists and turns, you know what I'm saying? This movie was directed by Sam Raimi, the auteur, if you will, of all those Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness. More recently, he did those Spider-Man movies, the ones with Tobey Maguire. Frequent collaborator with Bruce Campbell. In fact, Bruce Campbell was originally, he wanted him to play the role of Peyton Westlake, and the studio was like, no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. So they were talking about a bunch of different actors. Bill Paxton, at one point, was up for the role, and he mentioned it to his buddy Liam Neeson. Hey, I'm going out for this role. And Liam Neeson went, got the role, and it upset Bill Paxton quite a bit. They didn't talk for months after this. Liam Neeson was kind of a relatively unknown actor at this point. He was in such things as Krull. He was in Suspect, that movie with Cher and Dennis Quaid, where he didn't really speak. Big 6'5" Irish guy. They're like, okay. So they cast him, and they needed to find Julie Hastings, the love interest. And they brought in a bunch of different people. Bridget Fonda read for the role. Demi Moore was considered. Julie Roberts was at one point cast, but then she dropped it to do Pretty Woman instead. Probably a good move in retrospect. Eventually they settled on Frances McDormand, who was always in those Coen Brothers movies. But as people know, the Coen Brothers and Sam Raimi are buddies, so they brought in, she became the love interest, and actually the Coen Brothers did a little script doctoring on the several different role types of scripts that they went through, the different drafts, I should say. Sam Raimi originally wanted to do kind of, either Batman or The Shadow, one of those superhero things. He also wanted to incorporate kind of those old Universal horror movie types of things, like The Mummy and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, those sorts of things. So it's kind of an interesting combination of those different flavors, if you will. It definitely has a Sam Raimi stamp to it, where it's a little bizarre. Some of the effects are very reminiscent of the Evil Dead movies. It's a little campy. It's a little wacky. There's a scene in the beginning of the movie where this other gangster's like, Durant's coming down here to steal my property. But I've got 100 guys with machine guns and guys hidden in giant crates driving these road warrior mobiles. And Durant walks in there. They take their guns away. There's literally like 6 guys. So it's 6 guys against 50. But it all changes when the guy pulls off his leg and has a machine gun. And they're able to kill 50 guys with one dude with a machine gun leg. It's all very strange. It's all anarchy. So the guy who played Robert G. Durant, up to this point, his big claim to fame was that he played Benny, the mentally challenged office worker from LA Law, if you remember. Sam Raimi had never seen LA Law, had no idea anything about this. Like, he'd won Emmys for playing Benny. But he cast him because he had kind of this understated quality that he liked, so he cast him for that. It was kind of an interesting choice, to say the least. If you look close, you can see a lot of those Sam Raimi regulars. His little brother Ted plays Ricky, who gets squished in the car. Sam Raimi has a cameo himself at one point. Playing the doctor who performs the surgery on Peyton Westlake is Jenny Agutter, if you remember her. It's a cameo. She was in American Werewolf in London. She was in Logan's Run. So she's all over the place. So good times. When this movie came out, before that, they were showing it to test screenings, and people said it was like the worst movie they'd ever seen. It was awful. So they had to do a lot of different cuts, a lot of different edits. Eventually, the editor quit, had a nervous breakdown. He was very upset about it. So they released it. It did well for how much their budget was, and it eventually became a cult classic, as you might imagine. And it spawned 2 sequels that were both straight to video. Neither of them had Liam Neeson, because right after he did Darkman, suddenly he's Oscar Schindler in Schindler's List. He's not returning the Darkman's calls after that, as you might imagine. Bruce Campbell, like I said, got a little crazy cameo at the end when Liam Neeson's like, I got to go off and do my own thing, Julie, or whatever he says. I don't know. So he runs off and he puts on a mask to try to hide from Julie. He's like, it's okay, Peyton. There's a scene in this movie earlier where he's like, Julie, if I was horribly burned, would you still love me? And she's like, I don't know, Peyton. I'd have to think about that. I really can't answer that. So clearly, by the end of the movie, she's like, I've changed my mind. You're horribly disfigured, but I do love you. He's like, yeah, gotta hit the trail, hon. Sorry, no can do. So he runs off, and he puts on a mask, and he turns around, and it's Bruce Campbell. So has no lines, is on screen for about 2 seconds, but there's Bruce Campbell. If you can last in the movie that long. The movie currently has an 82% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's fine. I remember watching this movie when I was like 13 or 14, whatever I was, and thinking it was the cat's pajamas. It's all right. It's a little over the top. A lot of the line delivery was very campy and bizarre. Check it out. Let me know what you think. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I give it an 82%, maybe a 60. D is for degree, thereabouts. So check it out. Let me know what you think. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix. Next week, moving away from whatever kind of genre this is into the holiday comedy genre a few weeks later. We're going to be doing Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton, also streaming instantly on Netflix. Rush out, see it, send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, or questions, and I may just talk about it on the show. Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. I can't comment on that. We'll see. So rush out and do that. Don't forget to send me any favorite movie suggestions, any things you want me to talk about. I'm here for you, okay? So there you have it. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. I'm everyone and no one. I'm everywhere and nowhere. Call me Darkman. That's my crazy Liam Neeson impression. So good times. Don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to go follow us on Twitter at the B Movie Club. And don't forget to subscribe on our page on YouTube.